Welcome friends to the 2022 Volkswagen Jetta review. And this is going to be everything that you need to know about this car. The model that we are testing today is the mid-level SE trim, which stickers for around $24,000-$25,000. It's finished in the rising blue metallic color, which I'm not going to lie, looks very good on this car. But first, let's start out with what's new for 2022, and we'll briefly talk about the 2023 model year as well. The biggest change and the biggest update for 2022 is the use of the 1.5 liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine. This is the same engine found in the VW Taos, the SUV, which I've done a full review on. And this engine produces 158 horsepower and 184 pounds-feet of torque. The previous Jetta used a 1.4 liter turbo four-cylinder, which did not produce as much horsepower as this. But even still, you might be looking at this going, well, that's still not a lot of power, even with this 1.5 liter. And you're right, it's not on paper at least. But in the real world, this thing certainly skedaddles off nicely. So this 1.5 liter, huge upgrade over the 1.4, and it's very fuel efficient at 29 in the city and I believe 41 on the highway for the SE and the SEL trims, while still utilizing regular fuel. Other changes, that's going to be with the overall exterior. We have new revised front bumpers and rear bumpers for 2022 and up. They have made blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert standard for all of the Jettas, and that's also a great thing to see. For 2023, we don't really see any massive changes because obviously this 2022, that's the primary mid-cycle refresh model that we're checking out here. So I believe in 2023, we get some more revised bumpers and one or two other standard features, which I will list on the screen here for you to read. But let's go ahead and let's transition over into this exterior now, because I appreciate the way this Volkswagen looks. Most VWs tend to have a pretty classic and discreet styling that enables it to be a more timeless shape than other cars in the segment. Some people might think that this is boring, but I think it's a nice, mature design. Obviously, the Volkswagen Passat is no longer in production. So as far as sedans go, you only have the Jetta and the Arteon to choose from. So even though this is a compact car, this is pretty massive on the inside. This car is about 186 inches long total, and it's not far off from the Passat in terms of size on the interior. Our family used to own a 2012 Passat back when that was brand new, and this new Jetta certainly rivals that previous generation Passat. We have some new wheel designs for 2022 and up. The base S model will come with 16-inch alloy wheels, and the Sport, SE, and SEL, they will all utilize 17-inch wheels. If you want 18-inch wheels, you have to step up to the GLI Jetta, which is a totally different topic. I'm not going to discuss that too much here in this video. So with these 17-inch wheels, they're wrapped in these 205 Kumo Solus tires, and honestly, they could have upped the size of these tires because this is a front-wheel drive car with torque that comes on rather quickly, so wider tires would have helped with the grip for sure. Volkswagen also gave us LED headlights and daytime running lights as standard, and I believe the SEL models will get a LED projector light as well. So overall, I like the timeless classic shape of this. I mean, that's the great thing about VWs and Audis. You can literally have a 10-year-old VW product and it still looks good and modern. I like how even though this is technically a compact car, it doesn't have the typical juvenile look and demeanor, okay? This has a more mature swagger about it. You don't look like the intern when you pull up in this. So I do appreciate this VW design. But certainly let me know your thoughts in the comment section on the looks of this Jetta. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into this driving segment now. Now, the main highlight with this car is going to be that 1.5 liter turbocharged engine. 158 horsepower, 184 pounds-feet of torque, as I already mentioned. Once again, I realize that doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, this thing gets up to speed really nicely. It's a lot more effortless than you would think, but there is one problem. When you have the wheel cocked and you are turning this and you floor it, it really just spins the front tires like crazy, and that is not an elegant sight. That's why I think having higher quality tires and a slightly wider tire setup would benefit this car greatly. Really what it needs is a limited slip differential, and you can kind of sort of get that if you go with the sport model, and the sport model is exactly what I recommend most people getting, because you actually get slightly revised bumpers and things, and you also get a blacked out grille, so the looks are a little bit better on the sport. But it's not just that. The sport model will also come with something known as the XDS cross differential. It's not a real limited slip differential, it's an e-diff, electronic diff, and it's supposed to mimic what a true mechanical limited slip diff is supposed to do. That e-diff is going to try to reduce some of the understeer and keep that front wheel drive power at bay as best as it can. Whatever, I mean, it's better than nothing. That's one of the reasons why I would go with the sport model. Plus, it also comes with a 6-speed manual transmission. The base model and the sport, I believe, will both come with a 6-speed manual. And you can pay a couple $100 more to get the 8-speed Tiptronic. But I'm glad to see that they are still offering a 6-speed manual. I think that's very cool. I haven't tried it personally, but it's a nice option to have, and keeps the cost down a little bit further. So the power is not an issue here. It's much quicker than what the numbers suggest. It's just the way it puts down its power. That's where it needs some help. I think some Continental Extreme contacts or the most aggressive Michelin Pilot for all-season tire. I think that would also benefit this car greatly. So if you're an owner of this car, that's something that you can do to help with the handling of this. Another thing I really like about this engine, this is actually a rather smooth 4-cylinder engine. This is much smoother than the VW Tiguan I just recently checked out. I really like the Tiguan. It was one of my more favorite VW products I've tested. However, the only thing I didn't like was that coarse sounding, rattly 4-cylinder that it came with. Every time I got on that throttle, it just, kind of a gross noise. This is much smoother, a little bit quieter, I feel like. So I do appreciate this engine. But mainly, the biggest highlight here is going to be the fuel economy, because it's rated to do around 29 in the city and 41 on the highway for the SE and the SEL with the automatic. And once again, with most VW/Audi products, you can meet and exceed these numbers like I have been. I've been getting like 31 in the city and like over 40 on the highway. It is very impressive how fuel efficient these cars are. And once again, this is on regular fuel, mind you. And as I already mentioned, with the more base models and the sport models, you can get the 6-speed manual transmission. I believe the MPG goes down a bit in the city, and then you gain 1 or 2 MPG out on the highway if you go with the 6-speed manual, which I thought was kind of interesting. I just assumed that all of the fuel economy benefits was due to the 8-speed here, the Tiptronic. And this 8-speed, there's some lag with it. Like, I just put my foot down, and it definitely takes a moment to kick down in gear. But if you put it into the sport mode, it becomes a little bit more reactive. It's not necessary to drive around in the sport mode. I'm totally fine with the normal mode in this, but I'm just saying if you wanted that better reaction, you can get that in the sport mode. I will say, off the line, I don't know if it's the way they have the engine tuned or the transmission tuned, but it feels very jumpy off the line, and that's a not so ideal feeling when you have other people in the car with you. You don't want that jumpy nature of this car. Even in the normal mode, it just feels that way. I guess it's to give you this sensation that this car is quicker than what it really is. But whatever, that's the only thing I've noticed with this engine and this transmission. So I think that's a pretty good coverage of the drivetrain. I think we covered everything there. Now that we're at a stop, I guess let's talk about the brakes, because the brakes are also rather touchy in this car, but they certainly bring you to a halt, and that's what's important here. So you have a lot of confidence in the brakes of this car. But with the steering and the handling of this car, well, first of all, let's talk about the steering, because it's so lightweight. It requires pretty much no effort at all to whip this car around. I think a lot of people will like that, but it's just not what you would expect out of a German product or a German car like this. These new VW cars and VW products, they have lost that, I don't know, German car solidity, I suppose. Honestly, the Honda Civic is the most German feeling car out of the bunch in this new segment of compact cars. Some people are upset when I say that, but I don't understand what is the point of stoning the messenger. I mean, I'm just here to tell you the truth about these cars. I didn't make this car. I don't make any of these vehicles. I'm just telling you how they feel. So there's no point in getting mad at me. I didn't do anything. Anyway, yeah, I just feel like for the American market, I suppose, Volkswagen is just trying to make their cars feel very lightweight, light on its toes, and easy to drive, and they're certainly achieving that. I mean, there's no fatigue in driving this car. Handling-wise, the car utilizes an excellent chassis. There's hardly any body roll with this. You know, when you're taking long sweeping corners, car feels very planted. It's a sure-footed and confidence-inspiring experience, but it's just that steering is very light. That doesn't mean that it's imprecise. It's a very precise steering wheel. It's just light feeling. It just feels weird when you first get into it because the handling characteristic is truly excellent with this car. I don't have a problem there. We have a strut-based suspension in the front and a torsion beam rear suspension, which turns off a lot of people, but honestly, this is so well tuned and well done. This is a very comfortable driving experience, and that's also been one of my more favorite attributes of this car is the way that it rides. Makes it an excellent daily driver combined with that fuel economy. This absorbs the smaller bumps, the larger bumps, all extremely well. It's got tiny little 17-inch wheels here, and that's definitely going to help with the ride quality, and this can ride even better if you go with the base model with the 16-inch wheels, but again, I don't recommend getting that. I think the sport model is the perfect combination of looks, demeanor, ride quality, price, and everything. Plus you get that little e-diff thing that they came out with, plus this little U-turn here. It's a compact car, so U-turns, driving, very easy. Maneuverability, I should say, very simple. So I'm going over some potholes here on purpose, and it's just soaking that up extremely well. I went over some railroad tracks before, and it just, yeah, you hardly notice it. And I had people sit in the back of this car, and they reported that it rides great in the rear. It doesn't feel all bouncy or anything like that. And that's typically what happens with a torsion beam rear suspension. That's why a lot of people don't like it, because, you know, most cars, they tend to ride pretty good up here in the front, but in the rear, if you have a cheap suspension like a torsion beam, it tends to be a little bit bouncy for the rear occupants, but in this case, not so. It's well done. From a refinement standpoint, the wind noise, the road noise, pretty well contained in here for a compact car. You have to be really on the highway, and that's when you get some road noise, and obviously wind noise gets amplified. That's with any car, but around town, it's very quiet. It's a good cabin space. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this car to be this nice, if I'm going to be honest with you. This car also has another unique, I guess, attribute about it when you drive it. This car always feels like it's doing 5 miles an hour more than what you're actually driving at, which I think is kind of cool. It adds to the fun factor of it just a little bit. It's a refined car, like I mentioned, but it just feels like you're going a little bit quicker than what you really are. And I think that's fine. I just thought I would throw that out there. I mean, I'm just trying to make this a very detailed driving impression, right? I'm just trying to give you all my thoughts with this vehicle. And along with that, let's do some comparisons here with the other compact cars. In this segment, I hold the Honda Civic, the new one, and the Mazda 3 at a pretty high regard. I think those are pretty much the class-leading, top-tier compact cars that you can buy. This is kind of sort of up there with them. This does a very good job because much like the Civic and the Mazda, this is trying to be a little bit more of an upscale car, try to hit above its weight class. I don't think it pulls off the premium traits quite as well as the Mazda and the Honda do. But then again, it doesn't really cost anywhere near as much as those cars. I mean, 21 grand for a sport model, that is pretty excellent value. And we also have some very good standard features here, like the blind spot monitoring and the rear cross traffic alert. There are some luxury cars that don't even give you those features as standard. And even this SE model, 24, 25 grand, they do give you heated seats in the SE models and up as standard. So that's one of the reasons why you might want to go with the SE. But if you go with the SE model, you can no longer get the manual transmission. But overall, I think this is about as quiet as the Honda Civic. I still think the Mazda 3 is probably the quietest in this segment. The Corolla feels a little bit more cardboard. It really embraces its compact car nature the most. It's really not trying to be upscale or anything like that. This and the Elantra, that's kind of a good comparison. The Elantra is another quiet and comfortable car that's not super premium feeling like the Honda Civic and the Mazda 3, but it's up there. You know, these four cars, Civic, Mazda, Elantra, and this VW Jetta, I think these are some pretty nice choices. Just depends on what car is going to fit your budget the best. Volkswagen cars tend to lease out pretty well, so I have noticed that. If you can get this at a cheap 0 down lease deal, then I would say go for it. But I think that's a pretty good in-depth look on driving this Jetta. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the interior, the different trims, the different options, and then we can conclude. Okay, let's get inside of this interior space. We do have keyless access, so if you want to open or unlock the door, just press this button here. That just locked it. Press it again, and it will unlock. There you go. So that's an overall look at the interior space. Let's start out with the doors here. Once again, this is a predominantly plastic interior space, but we do have some soft touch materials here as well, where you typically rest your arms. So I do appreciate that. We do have one-touch automatic windows for all four windows here. Here's your mirror controls. You have a decent amount of space here to put a larger bottle. Here's your gas cap release and your trunk release as well. We have the base audio system here. You have to step up to the SEL model to get the Beats audio. I think it's like a 400 watt sound system. I have not listened to it, so I can't really judge it, but I'll talk more about this audio system a little bit later on. Talking about these seats, we have the black leather seats here with some white stitching going around it, and these are extremely comfortable seats. I do appreciate them. You can sit in this for a very long time, not feel fatigued. You have a decent amount of lumbar support. Here is your seat controls as well. It's an electronic seat for this SE model. Let's go ahead and let's climb inside. We also have your push button start, of course. An 8-inch digital gauge cluster is standard. You have to step up to the SEL trim to get the 10.25-inch gauge cluster screen that will show you some navigation directions and some more sophisticated information as well. Here we have a 6.5-inch infotainment display, which is not large at all. It's nothing special to look at, but it certainly does get the job done. Very quick to respond. You do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you have to plug your phone in actually to utilize those functions. There is no wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. There you have it. Very basic, but gets the job done, and I do appreciate it for that reason. Here we can play with our sound settings, but I'll be honest, this audio system doesn't sound half bad. It does a decent job. There's some clarity and some bass here. It doesn't sound ridiculous like some of the cheaper Toyota products. They'll just over amplify the bass of the sound system, and that's just how most cheaper audio systems, that's just how they typically tune their audio systems. But here we have a good balance, and I appreciate it. So I don't think getting the 400 watt Beats audio system is going to really help anything. This sounds better than the stupid Fender audio system found in the Tiguan I tested, in my opinion. But none of them are amazing. I'm just saying this is not bad for a non-premium sound system. And I mean, overall, this interior space, it's predominantly plastic, as I already mentioned. I mean, this scratchier type. But once again, it's a compact car. What do you expect? At least it feels sturdy in here. It feels solid. I don't feel like it's going to creak and rattle. I mean, it's all well put together. This is the SE model, the mid-level, for around $24,000-$25,000. We do have your automatic headlights, your signal stock, and wiper controls as well. Because we have the SE, we also have a leather wrapped steering wheel, which is very nice. Feels rather girthy. It even has a bit of a flat bottom here as well. We also have here some controls, your volume controls, your track selection, all done there. And this is how you navigate your gauge cluster screen. These are your adaptive cruise control settings, like when you go with the IQ models, or I'm sorry, the IQ drive assistance. The SE model gets that as standard, but you can option that in for the S model as well, the base models, with the automatic transmission. So if you go with the S or the Sport and you want the IQ drive, you have to get the automatic 8-speed transmission. Otherwise, if you get the manual, you cannot option in the IQ drive assistance. In my opinion, I don't really think it's necessary, but it's essentially a semi-autonomous, hands-on highway driving assist package. But I just appreciate the fact that they give you blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert as standard for the 2022 model years. And I'll show you the backup camera as well. Pretty basic, and the lines do not move with the steering input. And the clarity of this isn't that great either, but whatever, at least you have it. It's a pretty easy car to drive for the most part, so it's not a big deal. Anyway, let me show you the gauge cluster here. You can customize it here. It shows you some information. So you just use these buttons as I already mentioned, and then press the left side to access the information there. You can reset your trip odometers. You can reset your trip information, whatever you want. Pretty basic. Once again, this is the 8-inch gauge cluster. You have to get the SEL with the 10.25-inch display or gauge cluster to show you like the navigation, things like that. But this still looks good. I do appreciate it. I really like the way they give you a lot of physical buttons, knobs, and switches for the climate control. We also have here heated seats for the SE model. And you do have to step up to the SE model like this to get the heated seats. You don't get that as standard. That's one thing I don't like about the Sport model. You don't get to have the heated seats. But whatever. Climate control, simple to use, not a problem. So, well done there. Physical gear lever knob with this 8-speed automatic. We also have a manual mode. You have to shift it to the right. There you have it. You have an e-brake or an electronic parking brake, auto stop start, which this auto stop start feature actually works pretty well. It's pretty smooth. I don't really have a huge problem with it, but you can certainly turn it off if you don't like it. You can put this car into eco mode, which is not necessary. It's very eco the way it is in normal mode. It gets phenomenal fuel economy, almost hybrid levels of fuel economy, especially if you are mellow with the throttle pedal. Definitely a huge pro with this car. You have plenty of space here to put a cell phone. That's not remotely an issue. And you have 2 USB-C ports here as well with a 12-volt. Bunch of empty placement buttons, I guess. Cup holder space here. Not bad. Here is the center armrest. Also a decent amount of space in there as well. A soft touch padded. And the glove box is also massive, even with the books inside of it, and I appreciate that. We do have here like the optional pano sunroof. It's a rather large sunroof in here, so that's optional. Sunglass holder, which is always great to see. Got your SOS button. Sunroof controls here as well. So yeah, even though this is a pretty basic car interior space, it's still nice. It's solid. It's got everything you need. Getting this SE model, it's worth it. It's not bad. I mean, you get these kind of leather-ish seats here that are very comfortable. With that established, let's go ahead and let's talk about the rear seats now. This car makes a massive racket anytime you open the door. If the key is not detected, the car just freaks out. I really hate that. Anyway, into the rear seats here. Of course it's locked. It just loves to beep and scream. Alright, here is the rear seats. Oh, shut up. As you can see, the leather trimmings, it continues. Very comfortable, very plush. And check out the legroom. That is pretty massive. Obviously they're not making the Passat anymore, so, and nobody can really afford the Arteon. So here we have it, a pretty massive Jetta. So yeah, you have plenty of room to sit back here. I am 5'11". It is very easy for me to get in and out of this car. This seat is set to my setting, and I still have plenty of space. Kind of dig your knees into the back here as well. So that's nice. We don't have any rear vents or heated seats in the back. You don't get anything like that here, but nor is that really necessary. Only the passenger front seat has a pocket. The driver's seat does not. You do have here the one-touch automatic windows, as I already mentioned. And the doors actually feel remarkably solid. And once again, this overall car feels very solid. So that's definitely a huge pro. And let's check out what's here in the middle. Got some cup holders here. No pass-through, but 60/40 split folding seats. That is standard. So let's go ahead and let's check out the trunk space as well. And then we can conclude this review. So you can also open up this trunk with the key fob there. Massive trunk, not an issue. You can fold down those seats 60/40 like I already mentioned. And you do also have a spare tire in the trunk as well. Definitely a welcome touch if you want to fold down the rear seats. Just pull these levers here and you are good to go. But yeah, that's a look at the trunk. You are good to go. Very practical. You can fit a lot of things here. Yeah, I think that's pretty good for most families. Let's go ahead, close that up, and let's conclude this review. Okay, let us conclude this review. Well, what do I think? Obviously, if you get it at a good deal or a good lease deal, like I mentioned during the driving segment, I think this is a great little option for a lot of families. The looks are nice and grown up, mature. Once again, you don't look like the intern when you pull up to places. The rising blue metallic color is fantastic. Definitely adds some character to this car. Driving wise, refinement, handling, all of that was great. The only thing that wasn't so great is the way it just peels out at corners. Every left hand, right hand turn that you make just peels out like crazy. So in some ways, getting a Tiguan all-wheel drive, of course, that's going to help manage the power a lot better, but that's obviously a SUV. This rides better than the Tiguan, mind you, with an inferior suspension architecture in the rear. That's the benefit of a sedan, and I think I forgot to mention this during the drive, but they fitted the control arms rather low in this car to help fit longer travel coil springs, and perhaps it's those longer travel coil springs that allows this car to ride so well. Whatever the case might be, it is a great riding car, very non-fatiguing. You can do a long journey, a long trip in this, and it's not going to be an issue for you. The interior, even though it's predominantly plastic, it's still well put together. There's no real creaks and rattles going on here. It's a lot like a Toyota product in that sense. I think it's good value. I think it's worth looking into. If you have one near you at a local dealership, it's definitely worth test driving it. If you're an owner of this car, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Fuel economy, the ride, the refinement, I feel like these are pretty important things to look into for a affordable daily driver. You combine that with the excellent safety of this car, it does really well even in the updated crash tests, like the side crash test. I think they upped the speed, and I believe this still got an acceptable score with the updated side crash test. Very impressive. A lot of cars were failing that, and it's nice to know that at least Volkswagen is at an acceptable rating for that particular test. So you can be rest assured that you're driving around in a very safe product. But that's going to be my detailed look at the 2022 VW Jetta. The next video will be on the end screen here, and I hope to see you there.